What if I told you that the most powerful transformation you'll ever experience happens when you're not even trying? What if the secret to unbreakable discipline isn't found in your waking hours, but in the 8 hours when your conscious mind finally shuts up and gets out of the way? Listen up. While you've been grinding through another day, fighting against your own resistance, battling the voice in your head that says, tomorrow, your brain has been working against you. Every night, as you drift off to sleep, your subconscious mind is busy reinforcing the very patterns that keep you stuck. It's strengthening the neural pathways that lead to procrastination, excuse-making, and giving up when things get hard. But here's what nobody talks about. Here's the game changer that separates the people who actually achieve their goals from those who just dream about them. You can flip the script. You can turn those 8 hours of sleep into the most productive hours of your entire day. You can literally rewire your brain for discipline while you're unconscious. Think about this for a second. Your brain doesn't shut down when you sleep. It doesn't take a vacation. It's working harder than it does when you're awake, consolidating memories, processing information, and most importantly, building the neural networks that will determine how you show up tomorrow. The question is, are you directing that process, or are you letting it happen by accident? Most people let it happen by accident. They go to bed with whatever thoughts happen to be bouncing around in their heads. Maybe they're stressed about tomorrow. Maybe they're replaying their failures from today. Maybe they're just mindlessly scrolling through their phone until their eyes get heavy. And then they wonder why they wake up feeling the same way they went to bed. They wonder why nothing changes. You want to know why discipline feels so hard? It's because you're fighting against programming that gets reinforced every single night. While you sleep, your brain is strengthening the pathways that lead to the same old behaviors, the same old excuses, the same old results. It's like trying to build muscle while someone else is tearing it down. You're working against yourself. But when you understand how sleep actually works, when you understand what's happening in your brain during those crucial hours, you realize you've been sitting on the most powerful tool for transformation that exists. Sleep isn't just recovery time. It's rewiring time. It's when your brain decides who you're going to be tomorrow. During sleep, your brain goes through different stages, and each one presents an opportunity to install new programming. In the deeper stages, your conscious mind, the part that's always doubting and making excuses, finally gets quiet. That's when your subconscious mind becomes most receptive to new information, new beliefs, new patterns of thinking. This is where most people miss the biggest opportunity of their lives. They think change happens during the day, through willpower and grinding. They think discipline is about forcing yourself to do things you don't want to do. But real change, lasting change, happens when you're not even aware of it. It happens when you program your subconscious mind to want what you want, to crave the very behaviors that will get you where you need to go. Imagine waking up tomorrow and actually wanting to work out. Not forcing yourself, not dragging yourself to the gym, but genuinely wanting to move your body because it feels wrong not to. Imagine looking at your goals and feeling pulled toward them instead of having to push yourself. Imagine discipline feeling natural, automatic, like breathing. That's not fantasy. That's what happens when you align your conscious goals with your subconscious programming. That's what happens when you use sleep as a tool for transformation instead of just letting it happen randomly. The science behind this is crystal clear. During sleep, your brain increases production of proteins that are essential for building new neural connections. It clears out the waste products that accumulate during the day, making space for new pathways. Most importantly, it strengthens the neural networks that were most active right before you fell asleep. This means the thoughts you think, the images you visualize, the feelings you generate in those final moments before sleep don't just fade away. They get reinforced. They get embedded deeper into your subconscious mind. They become part of who you are at the most fundamental level. But here's where it gets really interesting. Your brain doesn't distinguish between what you've actually experienced and what you've vividly imagined. When you visualize yourself taking disciplined action, when you feel the emotions associated with achieving your goals, when you rehearse success in your mind, your brain treats it as if it actually happened. It builds the neural pathways that support those behaviors. Every night is a chance to become someone new. Every time you fall asleep, you have the opportunity to install new programming, new beliefs, new automatic responses. The person who goes to bed is not the same person who wakes up, but most people don't realize they get to choose who that new person is. Think about the most disciplined person you know, the person who makes it look easy, the person who consistently shows up, who follows through on their commitments, who seems to have unlimited motivation. What you're seeing isn't superhuman willpower. What you're seeing is alignment. Their conscious desires match their subconscious programming. They want to do the things that will get them where they want to go. That's not something they were born with. That's something they created. And you can create it too, starting tonight. The process begins with understanding that your subconscious mind is always listening. It's always recording. It's always building patterns based on what you feed it. Most people feed it garbage. They fall asleep to Netflix, to social media, to whatever random thoughts happen to be floating through their minds. And then they wonder why they can't seem to change. Your subconscious mind is like the most powerful computer ever created, but most people never learn how to program it. They just let it run whatever software got installed by accident, by their past experiences, by other people's opinions, by society's limitations, and then they spend their whole lives fighting against their own programming. But when you take control of what goes into your subconscious mind, when you become intentional about the programming you install each night, everything changes. You stop fighting yourself. You stop relying on willpower. You start becoming the kind of person who naturally does the things that successful people do. This isn't about positive thinking or wishful dreaming. This is about practical neuroscience. This is about using the way your brain actually works to create the changes you want to see in your life. This is about turning sleep from dead time into transformation time. The most successful people throughout history have understood this principle, even if they didn't know the science behind it. They knew that what happens in the mind happens in reality. They knew that you have to become the person internally before you can become them externally. They knew that discipline isn't something you force, it's something you develop. But here's what they didn't have that you do. They didn't have the scientific understanding of exactly how this process works. They didn't have the precise techniques for programming the subconscious mind during sleep. They had to figure it out through trial and error. You don't. Tonight, when your head hits that pillow, you have a choice. You can let your brain randomly reinforce whatever patterns already exist, or you can take control. You can use those 8 hours to become someone new. You can literally sleep your way to discipline. The question isn't whether this works. The science is clear. The question is whether you're going to use it. whether you're going to take advantage of the most powerful tool for change that exists, or whether you're going to keep doing the same thing you've always done and hoping for different results. The difference between people who succeed and people who fail isn't talent, it isn't luck, it isn't connections or circumstances. The difference is what happens in their minds when nobody's watching. The difference is what gets programmed into their subconscious while they sleep. You think you're competing against other people, but you're not. You're competing against the version of yourself that gets created every single night. The version that either supports your goals or sabotages them. The version that either pulls you toward success or drags you toward mediocrity. Right now, as you're listening to this, there are neural pathways in your brain that are stronger than steel cables. These pathways determine how you respond to challenges. They determine whether you push through resistance or give up at the first sign of difficulty. They determine whether you see opportunities or obstacles. And most importantly, they determine whether discipline feels natural or forced. These pathways didn't appear overnight. They were built through repetition, through reinforcement, through the same thoughts and behaviors happening over and over again. And here's the brutal truth. If you don't like the patterns in your life right now, it's because you've been unconsciously programming yourself for failure every single night. But failure isn't permanent. Weakness isn't permanent. Lack of discipline isn't permanent. What's permanent is your ability to change the programming. What's permanent is your capacity to rewire your brain for success. Every night, when you enter deep sleep, your brain starts a process called memory consolidation. This isn't just about remembering facts or experiences. This is about strengthening the neural networks that define who you are. Your brain is literally deciding which connections to keep, which ones to strengthen, and which ones to let fade away. The connections that were most active right before you fell asleep get the most reinforcement. The thoughts you were thinking, the images you were visualizing, the emotions you were feeling, these get wired deeper into your brain. They become more automatic, more natural, more you. Most people waste this process completely. They fall asleep thinking about their problems, their fears, their limitations. They replay their failures from the day. They worry about tomorrow's challenges. And then their brain dutifully strengthens all the neural pathways associated with doubt, fear, and giving up. No wonder they wake up feeling the same way they went to bed. No wonder they can't seem to break free from their old patterns. They're programming themselves for the same old results every single night. But what if you flip this around? What if instead of reinforcing weakness, you reinforce strength? What if instead of programming fear, you programmed courage? What if instead of installing doubt, you installed unshakable belief in your ability to follow through? This isn't about lying to yourself or pretending everything's perfect. This is about deliberately choosing which version of yourself gets reinforced while you sleep. This is about taking control of the most important 8 hours of your day. The process starts with preparation. Before you even think about going to bed, you need to prepare your mind for the programming you want to install. You need to get clear on exactly what kind of person you want to become. Not just what you want to achieve, but who you need to be to achieve it. If you want to lose weight, you don't just visualize being skinny. You program yourself to be the kind of person who naturally makes healthy choices. You see yourself craving vegetables instead of junk food. You feel yourself looking forward to workouts instead of dreading them. You become someone for whom discipline around food feels normal, natural, automatic. If you want to build a business, you don't just dream about the money. You program yourself to be the kind of person who takes action despite uncertainty. You see yourself pushing through obstacles with determination. You feel yourself getting excited about challenges instead of overwhelmed by them. You become someone for whom persistence and hard work feel like breathing. If you want to develop any skill, any habit, any area of discipline, the process is the same. You identify who you need to become, and then you use sleep to become that person at the neural level. The technique itself is deceptively simple, but the results are profound. As you prepare for sleep, you enter a state of relaxed focus. You slow down your breathing. You release the tension from your body. You quiet the chatter in your mind, and then you begin the programming process. You visualize yourself taking the actions you want to take. You see yourself responding to challenges the way a disciplined person would respond. You feel the emotions associated with following through on your commitments. You experience, in vivid detail, what it's like to be the person you want to become. But here's the crucial part. You don't just think about these things. You experience them. You make the visualization so real, so detailed, so emotionally charged that your brain can't tell the difference between the visualization and reality. You literally trick your subconscious into thinking you've already become this person. Your brain starts building the neural pathways that support this new identity. It begins to see disciplined behavior as normal, expected, natural. It starts to crave the actions that align with your goals. It begins to resist the behaviors that don't serve you. This process doesn't require years of therapy or complicated techniques. It doesn't require special equipment or expensive programs. All it requires is consistency and intention. Every night, for just a few minutes before you fall asleep, you reprogram your subconscious mind for success. The changes don't happen overnight, but they happen faster than you might expect. Within days, you'll notice subtle shifts in your motivation, your energy, your desire to take action. Within weeks, behaviors that used to require massive willpower start to feel more natural. Within months, you'll look back and realize you've become a completely different person. The key is understanding that this isn't magic. This is applied neuroscience. This is using the way your brain naturally works to create the changes you want to see in your life. Your brain is designed to adapt, to learn, to rewire itself based on repeated experiences. You're just taking control of what experiences you're providing it. Think about how you learned to drive a car. At first, it required intense concentration. You had to think about every movement, every decision. But through repetition, those behaviors became automatic. Now you can drive without consciously thinking about it. The same principle applies to any behavior, any habit, any area of discipline. The difference is that most people wait for circumstances to force the repetition. They wait until they have no choice but to change. But you don't have to wait. You can create the repetition artificially in your mind while you sleep. You can fast-track the process of making discipline automatic. Every successful person has gone through this process, whether they realized it or not. They've programmed themselves to want what they need to do. They've aligned their desires with their goals. They've made discipline feel natural instead of forced. The only difference between them and people who struggle is that they've figured out how to work with their brain instead of against it. They've learned to use their subconscious mind as an ally instead of an enemy. You have the same brain they do. You have the same capacity for change, the same ability to rewire your neural pathways, the same power to transform yourself while you sleep. The only question is whether you're going to use it. Tonight represents a choice. You can continue letting your subconscious mind run on autopilot, reinforcing the same old patterns that have kept you stuck. Or you can take control. You can use those 8 hours to become someone new. The person you'll be tomorrow morning is being created right now, in your thoughts, in your expectations, in the programming you're installing. Make sure that person is someone you want to be. The transformation begins the moment you make this decision. The moment you decide that every night is an opportunity to rebuild yourself from the inside out. Because here's what most people don't understand about discipline. It's not about forcing yourself to do things you hate. It's about becoming the kind of person who naturally gravitates toward the actions that create success. You want to know what separates champions from everyone else? Champions don't rely on motivation. They don't wait to feel like doing something before they do it. They've programmed themselves at such a deep level that the right actions feel inevitable. They've made excellence a reflex, not a choice. And you can do the same thing, starting tonight. See, your brain is already working overtime while you sleep. It's processing the day's events, sorting through memories, deciding what's important enough to keep and what can be discarded. But most importantly, it's strengthening the neural connections that were most active before you went to bed. It's literally deciding who you're going to be tomorrow. Right now, as we speak, there are people all over the world who are going to bed with their minds full of doubt, fear, and excuses. They're rehearsing their limitations. They're visualizing their failures. They're programming themselves for mediocrity. And tomorrow morning, they'll wake up and wonder why nothing ever changes. But then there are others, a small percentage who understand what we're talking about right here. They're going to bed tonight with a clear vision of who they want to become. They're programming strength into their subconscious. They're installing new beliefs, new responses, new automatic behaviors. And tomorrow morning, they're going to wake up a little bit different than they were today. The question is, which group are you going to be part of? Because make no mistake about it, this isn't theory. This isn't wishful thinking. This is how change actually happens. Real, lasting change doesn't come from grinding through your days with white-knuckled willpower. It comes from aligning your subconscious mind with your conscious goals. Think about the last time you tried to change something about yourself. Maybe you wanted to start working out. Maybe you wanted to eat healthier. Maybe you wanted to build a business or learn a new skill. How long did your motivation last? A few days? A few weeks if you were lucky? Here's why it didn't stick. You were trying to change your behaviors without changing your identity. You were trying to act like someone you weren't. And your subconscious mind, the part of you that controls 90% of your daily actions, was fighting you every step of the way. Your subconscious doesn't care about your goals. It cares about keeping you consistent with who it thinks you are. And if you've spent years programming it to believe you're undisciplined, lazy, or incapable of change, it's going to resist any attempt to prove otherwise. But when you understand this dynamic, when you realize that your identity is just a collection of beliefs that can be changed, everything shifts. You stop trying to force behaviors that feel unnatural. You start focusing on becoming the kind of person for whom those behaviors feel normal. And the fastest way to change your identity is through sleep programming. During the deeper stages of sleep, something remarkable happens. Your conscious mind, the part that's always analyzing and judging and making excuses, finally gets quiet. Your subconscious mind becomes incredibly receptive to new information. It's like having direct access to your brain's operating system. This is when the magic happens. This is when you can install new programs, new beliefs, new automatic responses. This is when you can literally rewire yourself for success. But most people waste this opportunity completely. They fall asleep watching television or scrolling through their phones. They let random thoughts and images fill their minds. They allow their subconscious to reinforce whatever patterns already exist, good or bad. Or, what if instead of leaving this process to chance, you took control of it? What if you used those precious minutes before sleep to deliberately program the exact qualities you want to develop? Imagine programming yourself to crave challenge instead of avoiding it. Imagine installing a deep, unshakable belief in your ability to figure things out. Imagine wiring yourself to see obstacles as opportunities and setbacks as setups for comebacks. This isn't about positive thinking or fake it till you make it. This is about practical brain training. This is about using the way your neural networks actually form to create the person you want to become. Your brain doesn't know the difference between something you've actually experienced and something you've vividly imagined. When you visualize yourself taking disciplined action, when you feel the emotions associated with following through, when you rehearse success in your mind with enough detail and intensity, your brain treats it as real experience. It starts building the neural pathways that support those behaviors. It begins to expect disciplined action from you. It starts to feel weird when you're not living up to your new standards. Every night, you have the opportunity to practice being the person you want to become. Not just think about it, but actually experience it. To feel what it feels like to have unbreakable discipline. To know what it's like to follow through no matter what. To embody the mindset of someone who never gives up. The process is simple, but it requires commitment. Just like building physical muscle requires consistent training, building mental muscle requires consistent programming. You can't do this once and expect permanent results. You have to make it a practice. But here's the beautiful thing about consistency. It gets easier over time. The new neural pathways you're building get stronger with each repetition. The new identity you're creating becomes more natural, more automatic, more you. Within a few weeks of consistent sleep programming, you'll start noticing changes. You'll find yourself making better choices without having to think about it. You'll feel more motivated to take action. You'll bounce back from setbacks faster. You'll start to embody the kind of discipline you used to only dream about. The key is specificity. You can't just visualize being better or more disciplined. You need to get crystal clear on exactly what that looks like. How does a disciplined person wake up in the morning? How do they respond to challenges? How do they handle temptation? How do they deal with failure? You need to create a detailed blueprint of the person you want to become, and then use sleep programming to install that blueprint into your subconscious mind. You need to live as that person in your imagination so vividly that your brain starts to believe it's already true. This is where most people get it wrong. They think change happens through force, through grinding, through trying harder. But real change happens through becoming. And becoming happens in the quiet moments when your conscious mind isn't interfering with the process. Every great achievement starts with a decision, not just a decision to do something, but a decision to become someone. The person who loses 50 pounds doesn't just decide to go on a diet. They decide to become someone who values their health above temporary pleasure. The person who builds $1 million business doesn't just decide to make money. They decide to become someone who creates value and serves others. And that transformation, that becoming, happens most powerfully during sleep when your brain is rewiring itself for the next day. You've been given the most powerful tool for change that exists, your own mind. The question is, are you going to use it intentionally, or are you going to let it run on autopilot? Are you going to take control of your programming, or are you going to let your programming control you? Tonight, when you lay your head on that pillow, you're not just going to sleep. You're entering the laboratory where tomorrow's version of yourself gets created. You're stepping into the workshop where discipline gets built. You're accessing the control room where your automatic behaviors get programmed. The choice you make in those final moments before sleep could be the most important choice you make all day, because those moments determine who you'll be when you wake up. They determine whether tomorrow brings more of the same old patterns or the beginning of something new. You can lie there and let your mind wander to your problems, your fears, your limitations. You can rehearse all the reasons why change is hard and success is for other people. You can program yourself for another day of struggle and disappointment. Or you can take control. You can use those moments to install the programming of a champion. You can visualize yourself taking action despite resistance. You can feel the satisfaction of following through on your commitments. You can experience what it's like to be someone for whom discipline is natural and automatic. The power is in your hands. The technology is in your head. The opportunity is tonight. The only question is what you're going to do with it. Remember this: every single person who has ever achieved anything significant has gone through this process of becoming. They've had to rewire their minds for success. They've had to install new programming. They've had to become someone new on the inside before they could create something new on the outside. The difference between them and everyone else isn't that they were born different. It's that they figured out how to use their minds as tools for transformation, instead of letting their minds use them as prisoners of the past. You have that same power. You have that same capacity. You have that same opportunity waiting for you every single night. The question isn't whether you can change. The question is whether you will change. Your future self is counting on the decisions you make tonight. The person you could become is waiting for you to take control of the programming. The life you want to live is on the other side of rewiring your brain for discipline. And it all starts when your head hits that pillow and you decide that tonight, instead of letting your subconscious run wild, you're going to program it for greatness. The transformation begins now. The moment you understand that sleep isn't just rest time, it's construction time. It's when tomorrow's version of yourself gets built, and you get to be the architect. So here's what's going to happen starting tonight. You're going to stop being a victim of random neural programming. You're going to stop letting your brain reinforce whatever garbage happens to be floating around in your consciousness when you fall asleep. You're going to become the architect of your own mind. Because here's the truth that nobody wants to tell you. The reason you keep falling back into old patterns isn't because you're weak. It's because you've been programming weakness into your subconscious every single night. The reason discipline feels like swimming upstream isn't because you lack willpower. It's because your brain is wired to resist the very actions that would transform your life. But that ends tonight. See, most people think their thoughts just happen to them. They think they're victims of whatever pops into their heads. They wake up with whatever mood their brain decides to serve them. They respond to challenges based on programming they didn't even know they had. They're passengers in their own lives. You're about to become the driver. Every thought you think before sleep is a command to your subconscious. Every image you visualize is an instruction for tomorrow's behavior. Every emotion you generate is programming life throws at you, most for how you'll respond to whatever people are giving their brains random, contradictory, fear-based commands, and then wondering why their lives feel chaotic. You're going to give your brain crystal clear instructions for building the exact person you want to become. The process starts with getting brutally honest about who you are right now versus who you need to be. Not in some philosophical way, but in practical terms. What specific behaviors separate you from the person who has what you want? What exact responses would someone with unshakable discipline have to the challenges you face daily? If you want to build a business, what does an entrepreneur think about when obstacles appear? If you want to get in incredible shape, how does a fitness enthusiast respond when they don't feel like working out? If you want to master any skill, what goes through the mind of someone who never gives up when progress gets difficult? You need to study excellence like your life depends on it, because it does. Here's where most people mess this up. They try to program generic success instead of specific behaviors. They visualize having money instead of programming themselves to take the daily actions that create wealth. They imagine being fit instead of installing the automatic responses that lead to consistent training. Your subconscious doesn't care about your end goals. It cares about your identity. And your identity is nothing more than the collection of behaviors you repeat consistently. Change the behaviors, change the identity. Change the identity, change the life. But changing behaviors through willpower is like trying to change the course of a river with your bare hands. You might succeed for a few minutes, but eventually the current wins. The only way to permanently change the river's course is to change the landscape. And the landscape of your life is your subconscious programming. So tonight, instead of falling asleep to whatever random thoughts happen to be bouncing around your skull, you're going to take control. You're going to use those precious minutes before unconsciousness to install the exact programming that will make discipline feel natural tomorrow. Start by creating what I call your identity blueprint. This isn't a vision board or a list of goals. This is a detailed psychological profile of the person you need to become. How do they wake up? What's their first thought when challenges arise? How do they handle temptation? What drives them when motivation fades? You need to know this person better than you know yourself, because pretty soon, this person is going to be you. Then comes the installation process. As you prepare for sleep, you're going to become this person in your mind. Not think about them, not wish you were them, but actually experience being them. You're going to feel what they feel, think what they think, respond how they respond. Your brain is going to resist this at first. It's going to try to pull you back to familiar patterns, familiar doubts, familiar limitations. That resistance is proof you're doing something right. You're literally fighting against years of conditioning. You're rewiring neural pathways that have been running the same program for decades. But here's what happens when you persist. Your brain starts to accept this new programming as reality. It begins to expect disciplined behavior from you. It starts to feel uncomfortable when you're not living up to your new standards. The behaviors that used to require massive effort begin to feel automatic. This isn't positive thinking. This is practical neuroscience. You're using the way your brain actually works to create the changes you want to see in your life. Every night, your brain goes through a process called synaptic homeostasis. It literally decides which neural connections to strengthen and which ones to weaken. The connections that were most active right before sleep get reinforced. The ones that weren't used start to fade away. This means you have a choice every single night. You can let your brain strengthen the pathways of doubt, procrastination, and giving up. Or you can deliberately activate the pathways of discipline, persistence, and follow-through. Most people make this choice unconsciously. They fall asleep thinking about their problems, their fears, their past failures. They're literally programming their brains for more of the same. Then they wake up and wonder why nothing ever changes. You're going to make this choice consciously. You're going to use those final moments before sleep to activate the exact neural networks you want to strengthen. You're going to program your brain for the behaviors that will transform your life. The technique is simple, but it requires absolute commitment. As you lie in bed, you're going to visualize yourself taking disciplined action in vivid detail. You're going to see yourself pushing through resistance. You're going to feel the satisfaction of following through when you don't feel like it. You're going to experience what it's like to be someone who never gives up. But visualization alone isn't enough. You need to generate the emotions associated with these behaviors. You need to feel the pride of keeping your word to yourself. You need to experience the confidence that comes from knowing you can handle whatever challenges arise. You need to embody the identity of someone who has unbreakable discipline. Your subconscious mind responds to emotion more than logic. It doesn't matter how many times you tell yourself you should be disciplined if you're not feeling what discipline feels like. But when you combine clear visualization with powerful emotion, you create an experience so real that your brain can't tell the difference between imagination and reality. This is how you hack the system. This is how you use your brain's natural rewiring process to install the exact programming you want. This is how you make discipline feel as natural as breathing. The first few nights might feel awkward. You might find your mind wandering to other thoughts. You might feel silly visualizing behaviors you haven't mastered yet. That's normal. Your old programming is fighting to stay alive. But every night you practice, the new programming gets stronger. Within a week, you'll start noticing subtle changes. You'll find yourself making better choices without having to think about it. You'll feel more motivated to take action. You'll respond to challenges with more confidence. The behaviors that used to require enormous willpower will start to feel more natural. Within a month, people will start asking, "What's different about you?" They'll notice changes in your energy, your focus, your follow-through. They'll want to know what you've been doing differently. But the truth is, the biggest changes happened while you were sleeping. This is the secret that separates people who achieve their goals from people who just dream about them. Achievers don't rely on motivation or willpower. They've programmed themselves at such a deep level that the right actions feel inevitable. They've made excellence a reflex instead of a choice. And you can do the same thing, starting tonight. But here's what you need to understand. This isn't a one-time thing. This isn't something you do for a few nights and then forget about. This is a practice. This is a commitment to taking control of your own mind every single night for the rest of your life. Because your brain is always rewiring itself. Every night, it's making decisions about who you're going to be tomorrow. The question is whether you're going to direct that process or let it happen randomly. Most people let it happen randomly. They fall asleep to whatever thoughts happen to be in their heads. They let their subconscious reinforce whatever patterns already exist. They wake up the same person they went to bed as, day after day, year after year. But a small percentage of people understand what we're talking about here. They take control of their nightly programming. They use sleep as a tool for transformation. They literally evolve themselves while they're unconscious. These are the people who seem to have unlimited discipline. These are the people who make success look effortless. These are the people who achieve things that others think are impossible. The difference isn't talent or luck or circumstances. The difference is what happens in their minds when nobody's watching. The difference is how they program their subconscious while they sleep. You have the same opportunity they do. You have the same brain, the same capacity for change, the same ability to rewire your neural pathways. The only question is whether you're going to use it. Think about where you'll be a year from now if you master this process. Imagine having the kind of discipline that feels automatic. Imagine following through on your commitments without internal struggle. Imagine being the kind of person who never gives up, no matter what challenges arise. That person isn't some fantasy version of yourself. That person is who you become when you align your subconscious programming with your conscious goals. That person is the inevitable result of taking control of your nightly rewiring process. But it starts with a decision to stop being a victim of random programming, a decision to take responsibility for your own mind, a decision to use every night as an opportunity to become someone better. The moment you make that decision, everything changes. Not because the decision itself is magic, but because it sets in motion a process that will transform you at the deepest level. Every night becomes an opportunity for growth. Every sleep cycle becomes a chance to install new programming. Every morning becomes a fresh start with a mind that's been optimized for success while you were unconscious. This is how real change happens, not through grinding or forcing or trying harder during the day, through becoming someone different at the neural level while you sleep. Your brain is the most powerful computer ever created, but most people never learn how to program it. They just let it run whatever software got installed by accident. They let their past experiences, their fears, their limitations control their future possibilities. You're about to flip that script. You're about to become the programmer instead of just the user. You're about to take control of the most important 8 hours of your day. Because here's what nobody tells you about success. It's not about what you do during your waking hours. It's about what gets programmed into your subconscious while you sleep. It's about who you become when your conscious mind isn't interfering with the process. Every successful person has figured this out, whether they realized it or not. They've learned to work with their subconscious instead of against it. They've discovered how to make their automatic behaviors serve their goals instead of sabotage them. And now you know the secret too. The question is what you're going to do with this knowledge. Are you going to file it away as interesting information and go back to your old patterns? Or are you going to use it to transform your life starting tonight? Because transformation is available to you right now. Not someday when you feel ready. Not when circumstances are perfect. Not when you have more time or energy or motivation. Right now. Tonight. The moment your head hits that pillow and you decide to take control of your programming instead of letting it happen randomly. The person you could become is waiting for you to make that choice. The life you want to live is on the other side of rewiring your brain for discipline. And it all begins when you realize that sleep isn't just rest time. It's construction time. It's when tomorrow's version of yourself gets built. And you get to be the architect. So what's it going to be? Are you going to keep letting your subconscious run on autopilot, creating more of the same old patterns? Or are you going to take control and start building the person you were meant to become. The choice is yours, but choose quickly, because every night you wait is another night of programming weakness instead of strength, another night of installing doubt instead of confidence, another night of building the same person you've always been instead of the person you could become. Your future self is counting on the decision you make tonight. Don't let them down. The transformation you're about to experience isn't going to happen gradually. It's going to happen in layers, night after night, until one morning you wake up and realize you're not the same person who started this journey. You're going to look in the mirror and see someone who doesn't make excuses, someone who doesn't need external motivation, someone who has discipline hardwired into their very being. But let me tell you something that's going to separate you from everyone else who's ever heard about this concept. Most people are going to try this for a night or two, maybe a week if they're really committed. And then they're going to give up because they don't see immediate results. They're going to fall back into their old patterns of random thought before sleep, letting their minds wander wherever they want to go. You're not most people. You understand that the most powerful changes happen beneath the surface, in the dark, when nobody's watching. You understand that your brain is building tomorrow's version of yourself every single night, whether you direct that process or not. Here's what's really happening while you sleep. Your brain is taking every experience from the day, every thought, every emotion, every reaction, and it's deciding what deserves to be strengthened and what should fade away. It's like a sculptor working on a masterpiece, chiseling away everything that doesn't belong and reinforcing everything that does. Most people are giving their brain contradictory instructions. During the day, they want to be disciplined. They set goals. They make plans. They tell themselves this time will be different. But then they fall asleep thinking about how hard it is, how they failed today, how they don't know if they can really change. Their brain gets mixed signals and reinforces confusion instead of clarity. You're going to give your brain crystal clear instructions. You're going to end every single day by programming exactly who you want to be tomorrow. Not hoping, not wishing, but actually installing the neural pathways that make disciplined behavior automatic. Think about this for a second. Every habit you have right now, good or bad, started as a conscious choice that became unconscious through repetition. The first time you bit your nails or reached for your phone when you were bored or hit the snooze button, you had to think about it. But your brain recorded that behavior, and through repetition, it became automatic. The beautiful thing about understanding this process is that you can use it deliberately. You can create new automatic behaviors by giving your brain the repetition it needs. And the most powerful repetition happens during sleep, when your conscious mind isn't fighting the process. Let me paint you a picture of what this looks like in practice. Tonight, as you prepare for sleep, you're going to create what I call your discipline rehearsal. You're going to visualize yourself in specific situations where you typically struggle. Maybe it's waking up early. Maybe it's choosing healthy food over junk. Maybe it's doing the work when you don't feel motivated. But instead of seeing yourself struggle, you're going to see yourself responding with perfect discipline. You're going to feel what it feels like to jump out of bed when the alarm goes off. You're going to experience the satisfaction of choosing the salad over the burger. You're going to live through the moment when you sit down to work, despite not feeling like it. Your brain doesn't know you're just imagining this. As far as your neural networks are concerned, you're actually experiencing these moments of discipline. You're literally practicing being disciplined while you sleep. And practice makes permanent. But here's where most people mess this up. They try to visualize some perfect version of themselves that feels completely foreign. They imagine being someone so different from who they are now that their subconscious rejects the programming entirely. It's like trying to install software that's incompatible with your operating system. The key is to start with small, believable improvements. If you currently wake up hitting snooze 3 times, don't visualize yourself popping out of bed like some superhuman. Visualize yourself hitting snooze twice, then once, then not at all. Your brain can accept gradual improvement much easier than dramatic transformation. Each night, you're going to push the boundaries of what your subconscious believes is possible for you. You're going to expand your identity little by little until disciplined behavior becomes part of who you are at the core level. The process works because your brain is constantly updating its model of who you are based on recent experiences. Every time you visualize yourself taking disciplined action, every time you feel the emotions associated with following through, you're providing your brain with evidence of your new identity. Within days, you'll start noticing something interesting. The behaviors you've been visualizing will start to feel more natural during your waking hours. Your brain will begin to expect disciplined responses from you. It will start to feel weird when you're not living up to your new programming. This is when things get really exciting. This is when discipline stops feeling like work and starts feeling like who you are. This is when you stop fighting against your own nature and start expressing your true potential. But let me warn you about something that's going to happen. As you start changing, as you start developing real discipline, people around you are going to notice. Some of them are going to support you, but others are going to resist your transformation. They're going to try to pull you back to who you used to be. They'll make comments about how you've changed. They'll try to tempt you back into old behaviors. They'll question why you're being so disciplined, so focused, so different from how you used to be. This isn't because they're bad people. It's because your growth makes them uncomfortable about their own lack of progress. You need to be prepared for this resistance, both external and internal. Your old programming is going to fight back. There will be mornings when you wake up and your brain tries to convince you that the old way was easier, more comfortable, more you. That's when you remember why you started this process. That's when you remember that comfort is the enemy of greatness. That's when you push through the resistance and continue programming yourself for excellence every single night. The people who make it, the people who actually transform themselves through this process, beats perfection. They don the ones who understand that consistency need to have perfect visualization sessions every night. They just need to show up night after night and do the work of reprogramming their minds. Some nights you'll be tired. Some nights you'll be distracted. Some nights you'll wonder if this whole thing is just wishful thinking. But you'll do it anyway, because you understand that this is how real change happens. Not through perfect conditions, but through imperfect action, repeated consistently. Here's something that's going to surprise you. As you develop real discipline through this process, you're going to discover that it's not about becoming some robot who never feels resistance. Disciplined people feel resistance just like everyone else. The difference is in how they respond to that resistance. When you program yourself for discipline, you're not programming yourself to never feel like giving up. You're programming yourself to take action despite feeling like giving up. You're installing automatic responses that kick in when motivation fails. This is why motivation is overrated and programming is everything. Motivation comes and goes like the weather. But programming is like gravity. It works whether you feel like it or not. Every night when you do this work, when you visualize yourself pushing through resistance, when you feel the satisfaction of following through despite not wanting to, you're building what I call discipline muscle memory. Just like physical muscle memory allows you to ride a bike without thinking about it, discipline muscle memory allows you to take right action without relying on willpower. The goal isn't to eliminate the voice in your head that says you don't feel like doing something. The goal is to program yourself to take action regardless of what that voice says. To make following through feel more natural than giving up, think about the most disciplined people you know. The ones who consistently work out, eat right, build successful businesses, master difficult skills. What you're seeing isn't superhuman willpower. What you're seeing is programming. They've wired themselves to respond to challenges in ways that serve their goals instead of sabotaging them. And they didn't do it through grinding and forcing during their waking hours. They did it through the kind of subconscious programming we're talking about right here. They turned their sleep into a laboratory for building the person they wanted to become. You have that same laboratory. You have that same opportunity every single night. The question is whether you're going to use it or waste it. Starting tonight, your sleep is going to serve a different purpose. Instead of just recovering from the day, you're going to use it to prepare for tomorrow. Instead of letting your mind wander randomly, you're going to direct it toward becoming the person you need to be. This isn't about perfection. This isn't about never struggling or never feeling resistance. This is about building the kind of internal strength that allows you to move forward regardless of how you feel in any given moment. Because here's what nobody tells you about success. It's not about feeling motivated all the time. It's about taking action, especially when you don't feel motivated. It's about showing up when showing up is the last thing you want to do. And that kind of strength isn't built through willpower. It's built through programming. It's built by rewiring your brain to respond to challenges the way successful people respond to challenges. Every night, you're going to practice being that person. Every night, you're going to feel what it feels like to push through when things get difficult. Every night, you're going to strengthen the neural pathways that support the behaviors you want to develop. Your brain is going to resist this at first. It's comfortable with the current programming, even if that programming doesn't serve you. Change feels threatening to your subconscious, even when it's positive change. But resistance is just proof that you're doing something that matters. It's proof that you're challenging patterns that have kept you stuck. It's proof that you're serious about becoming someone new. The people who give up when they feel resistance are the same people who wonder why their lives never change. But you're different. You understand that resistance is part of the process, not a reason to quit. You're going to push through the resistance night after night until new patterns become as automatic as the old ones used to be. Until discipline becomes your default setting instead of something you have to manufacture through effort. This is how you break free from the prison of your past programming. This is how you stop being limited by who you used to be and start becoming who you're capable of being. This is how you turn your biggest weakness into your greatest strength. Every single night for the rest of your life, you have the opportunity to rebuild yourself from the ground up, to install new software, update your operating system, program new responses to old challenges. Most people waste this opportunity. They fall asleep to whatever garbage happens to be floating through their consciousness. They let their brains reinforce limitation, doubt, and mediocrity. But you're not most people. You understand that every night is a chance to level up. Every sleep cycle is an opportunity to become someone better than you were when you woke up that morning. The transformation begins tonight, not when you feel ready, not when circumstances are perfect, not when you have more time or energy or motivation. Tonight, when your head hits that pillow and you make the conscious decision to take control of your programming instead of letting it happen randomly. Your future self is counting on this decision. The person you could become is waiting for you to start building them, one night at a time, one visualization at a time, one programming session at a time. Don't let them down, because the person you become through this process isn't just going to change your life. They're going to change the lives of everyone around you. They're going to become an example of what's possible when someone decides to stop making excuses and starts making changes. That person is in you right now, waiting to be programmed into existence. The only question is whether you're going to do the work to bring them to life. Starting tonight, the answer better be yes. Because your time for making excuses is over. Your time for building discipline while you sleep has begun. The real game changer happens when you stop treating sleep like downtime and start treating it like the most important training session of your entire day. Because while everyone else is unconsciously reinforcing the same patterns that keep them stuck, you're going to be deliberately building the neural architecture of excellence. See, here's what separates the people who actually achieve their goals from those who just talk about them. The achievers understand that success isn't a part-time job. It's not something you work on for a few hours during the day and then forget about. Success is a 24/7 operation, and the most crucial work happens when your conscious mind finally gets out of the way. Your subconscious doesn't take breaks. It doesn't clock out when you fall asleep. It's working around the clock, either building the person you want to become or reinforcing the person you've always been. The choice is yours, but most people don't even realize they have a choice. They think their personality is fixed. They think their habits are permanent. They think discipline is something you either have or you don't. But every single one of those beliefs is wrong. Your personality is just a collection of patterns that can be reprogrammed. Your habits are neural pathways that can be rewired. And discipline is a skill that can be installed through the right kind of mental training. The training happens at night when your brain is doing its most important work. While you're unconscious, your neural networks are being strengthened or weakened based on what was most active before you fell asleep. This isn't theory. This is documented neuroscience. This is how your brain actually works. Most people are programming themselves for failure every single night without even knowing it. They fall asleep worried about tomorrow's challenges instead of excited about tomorrow's opportunities. They rehearse their limitations instead of their potential. They strengthen the neural pathways of doubt, fear, and giving up. But when you understand this process, when you realize you can direct it, everything changes. You stop being a victim of random programming and start being the architect of your own transformation. Here's what this looks like in practice. As you prepare for sleep tonight, you're going to create what I call your excellence protocol. This isn't some complicated ritual that takes hours. This is a simple, powerful process that rewires your brain for the behaviors you want to develop. You start by identifying the specific moment tomorrow when you'll need discipline most. Maybe it's when your alarm goes off. Maybe it's when you're choosing what to eat for breakfast. Maybe it's when you sit down to work on your most important project. Pick one specific moment where discipline will make the difference between moving forward or staying stuck. Now, you're going to live through that moment in your mind, but not as the person you are now. You're going to experience it as the person you're becoming. The person who has unshakable discipline. The person who follows through no matter what. The person who never gives up on themselves. You're going to see yourself in that moment, responding with perfect discipline. You're going to feel what it feels like to make the right choice, even when you don't want to. You're going to experience the satisfaction, the pride, the sense of integrity that comes from keeping your word to yourself. But here's the crucial part. You're not just watching this happen like a movie. You're experiencing it from the inside. You're feeling the emotions, sensing the physical sensations, hearing your internal dialogue. You're making it so real that your brain can't distinguish between the visualization and actual experience. Your subconscious is recording this as real memory. It's building the neural pathways that support this behavior. It's installing the automatic responses that will kick in tomorrow when you face that same situation. This is how you hack the system. This is how you use your brain's natural learning process to install behaviors before you need them. This is how you make discipline feel inevitable instead of impossible. But one visualization isn't enough. You need to layer these experiences night after night until the new programming overwrites the old. You need to be consistent with this process, the same way you'd be consistent with any other training program. Think about it this way. If you wanted to build physical strength, you wouldn't go to the gym once and expect to be muscular. You'd train consistently, progressively overloading your muscles until they adapted to handle greater challenges. Building mental strength works the same way. Every night, you're going to push your comfort zone a little further. You're going to visualize yourself handling more challenging situations with greater discipline. You're going to program yourself to thrive under pressure instead of crumbling when things get difficult. The resistance you feel during this process is actually proof that it's working. Your old programming is fighting to survive. The neural pathways you've been strengthening for years don't want to be replaced. But every time you push through that resistance, every time you complete your nightly programming session, despite not feeling like it, you're proving to yourself that you're serious about change. Within the first week, you'll start noticing subtle shifts in your behavior. You'll find yourself making better choices without having to think about them. You'll feel more motivated to take action. You'll bounce back from setbacks faster. These aren't accidents. These are the direct results of your nightly programming sessions. By the second week, people around you will start asking what's different. They'll notice changes in your energy, your focus, your follow-through. They'll want to know what you've been doing. But the truth is, the most important work happened while they were sleeping. After a month of consistent programming, you'll look back and realize you're not the same person who started this journey. The behaviors that used to require enormous willpower now feel natural. The discipline you used to struggle with now feels automatic. The person you visualized becoming has become your reality. But this is just the beginning. Once you master the basics of sleep programming, you can use this process to develop any quality, any skill, any area of discipline you want to strengthen. You can program yourself for courage, confidence, persistence, creativity, leadership, or any other trait that successful people possess. Tonight, you have a choice that will determine everything. You can continue being the person who lets their mind wander into worry, doubt, and limitation as you drift off to sleep. You can keep programming yourself for mediocrity, one unconscious night at a time, or you can take control of the most powerful transformation tool you possess and start building the disciplined person you were meant to become. Your future self is waiting. The only question is whether you'll do the work to create them. Stop waiting for tomorrow. Start programming tonight.